Hello, everybody. Welcome to Standard Definition here on Boss Rush Network. I'm your host, the Enlightened Insider Eddie V, for this episode. Joining me is Bossman himself, Mr. Corey Dirrig. Hello, good sir.
Hello. We seem to be doing a lot of these lately. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am actually excited about our topic that we're going to be talking about, because we've been talking a lot about Sega, and I think this is kind of one of their leading systems that's probably the most memorable outside of the Dreamcast when it comes to games and franchises. And the reason why I say that separately is because there are some games on there that Sega didn't produce, or they licensed and programmed themselves to be on it from other third party. But then there's some franchises that is still established today.
It's true.
So, yeah, but before we get into that, do you want to shout out our Patreon producers?
Oh, yeah. I forgot to open that up. So, yeah, if you are a patron of the Boss Rush Network, you can head it over to Patreon, patreon.com/Boss Rush Network, and for just $1, you get After Dark and Standard Definition 2 weeks early, as well as the Boss Rush podcast 1 week early, and Expansion Pass 1 week early. But if you want to be a Patreon producer, everybody, you can subscribe to the $5 tier. What does that get you? Well, it gets you all the previous perks, plus your name shouted out on this here program. So, without further ado, I would like to shout out our Patreon producers for this episode: Quentin Jackson, Rebecca Jewell, Adriel Munger, and my wife, Sana Dirrig. I want to thank all of our Patreon producers. I want to thank all of our patrons. But most of all, I just want to thank everybody who listens to this show. We really appreciate you. It's a good time. All of our content is free. We just, give perks to our patrons. So, yeah, thank you for supporting us, however you do. If you do listen to the show on free feeds, like iTunes or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. Please. Thanks.
Yes, it helps us out tremendously.
I'm trying to be quiet because both my kids are asleep, and I'm trying really hard to work on being quiet when I do podcasts. And I know it's not going to happen every time, but I'm going to try to keep my voice low, but my excitement high, Ed.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Anyways.
Well, everybody, we're talking about the Sega Genesis.
We are. Holy cow.
Yes, I am excited to be talking about this system. The Sega Genesis, known as the Mega Drive outside of North America, is a 16-bit fourth generation home video game console developed and sold by Sega. The Genesis was Sega's third console and the successor to the Master System. Sega released it in 1988 in Japan as the Mega Drive, and in 1989 in North America as the Genesis. In 1990, it was distributed as the Mega Drive by Virgin Mechatronics in Europe, Ozosoft in Australia, Australasia, whatever that is, and Tectoy in Brazil. In South Korea, it was distributed by Samsung as the Super Game Boy, and later the Super Aladdin Boy. In Russia, it was distributed by Forest. Designed by an R&D team supervised by Hideki Sato and Masuma Ishikawa, the Genesis was adapted from Sega's System 16 arcade board, centered on a Motorola 68000 processor as a CPU, Z-Log 7 Z80 as a sound controller, and a video system supporting hardware sprites, tiles, and scrolling. It plays a library of more than 900 games on ROM-based cartridges. Several add-ons were released, including a power-based converter to play Master System games. It was released in several different versions, some created by third parties. Sega also created 2 network services to support the Genesis, the Sega MegaNet and Sega Channel. 30.75 million first-party Genesis units were sold worldwide. In addition, Tech Toys sold an estimated 3 million licensed variants in Brazil. Majesco projected it would sell 1.5 million licensed variants of the system in the United States, and smaller numbers were sold by Samsung in South Korea. By the mid-2010s, licensed third-party Genesis re-releases were still being sold by At Games in North America and Europe. Many games have been re-released in compilations or on online services such as Nintendo Virtual Console, Xbox Live Arcade, PlayStation Network, and Steam, and just recently, everybody, the Switch Online. The Genesis was succeeded in 1994 by the Sega Saturn. So, August 14, 1989 was the release of the North American uh, version of the Sega Genesis. Now, so the Sega Genesis was kind of black. You guys who have Nintendo Expansion Pass on your Switch, kind of seen like it from the top angle from it. It had a volume system for your headphones. It had two ports for your controllers. The controller, if you think of like a cashew turned horizontal, it was kind of designed like there with three buttons, A, B, C, and on top of it was the start button above like the B. Later on, they did get a six button controller because later on Capcom signed on to the Sega Genesis to do Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Champion Edition, I believe. Yeah, so and they also had the Sega CD, which is quite known for Sonic CD, Night Trap, Make My Video, Crisscross, and CSC Music Factory, and other games on there. But before we get into that, Corey, when did you experience the Sega Genesis?
Well, I got my Sega Genesis about I don't know, shortly after my Game Boy. Like I kind of had like an NES and a Game Boy and a Genesis all at one time, right? Like I don't really remember like when or how I got my Genesis. Well, I know my cousin sold it to my mom for me for something, right? Because he wanted a Super Nintendo, so he sold Genesis. My mom bought the Genesis off of him, and I got it with like Ninja Turtles and Sonic 1 and 2 and probably some bunch of Disney games and but yeah, I mean like Genesis was I was the Sega kid growing up, like I had the Genesis, I had a bunch of games for it. I had a bunch of good times with it. Street Fighter and Rocket Knight and Ninja Turtles and all these other things, like the Genesis was the console that I kind of, just that was the first time I knew like, oh, well, I should be paying attention to video games, because there's something. Now, I always point to the Nintendo 64. I was like, this is something I'm going to do forever, right, with Mario 64. But the Genesis was really the console that I was like, I should probably pay attention and think about games and like, kind of pay attention to what I'm playing instead of, just playing whatever somebody handed me, So,
yes,
the Genesis was that console for me.
I know. For me, and I told the story before, but my brother was the Sega kid, and he got the Sega Genesis that Christmas, that year that it came out, because when he got it. He had he bought Michael Jackson Moonwalker. He asked for that for Christmas. But later on, he really wanted the system just for sports games. And Joe Montana football was the sports game. He had Bulls versus Blazers also from EA. And don't forget the Genesis cartridges for the EA games were kind of long, and they had that yellow tab on the left.
Yeah. I remember. I have Shaq Fu that has the yellow tab. I have Joe Montana Football 94. Like, I have a lot of yellow tabs Genesis games before they like.
Yeah, well,
it was before they came in like the smaller cartridges, right? Like, I mean, because there's a couple different size cartridges for Genesis games, especially the early ones were bigger. So
Yes, but I never understood what the yellow tab was
I,
for it.
I don't know.
Yes.
Your guess is as good as mine. Probably the same thing that like the reason why NES cartridges were gray and the fake ones were black and teal. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just oh,
Yeah.
oh.
So, uh, I do remember my brother getting two controllers because I believe he came with two controllers when the system was released. Um,
I don't know. I somehow ended up with like 10 Genesis controllers because I had like the two regular kind of 3-button longer controllers, and then I had two of the 6-button pads, and then I had a weird one that had shoulder buttons on it. I have a Genesis controller with two shoulder buttons on it.
hmm.
And I don't know what game that was for. I don't even know if it was real, but I just remember having a Genesis controller with two shoulder buttons on it. So,
Oh wow.
I mean, maybe it was a Saturn controller that plugged into my Genesis. I'm not sure. I have no idea where or how I got this controller, but it looks. I mean, it looks like the 6-button pad, right? But
Yes.
it's like a little bit fatter on top, and it has two shoulder buttons.
Yeah. I know that it with the controllers because they even I think when like Street Fighter came on because I think Street Fighter was like the only 6-button game because Mortal Kombat was weird to play on the Genesis.
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the fighting games were because, I mean, that's why everybody played Street Fighter on the Super Nintendo, is because it had 6 buttons. Even though, I mean, they weren't laid out correctly, but they had at least had 6 buttons, right? And the Genesis had 3, to the point where like you had to hold like the C button, I think, and hit A and B to get the other buttons. So,
Yeah.
but I do think that the 6-button controller made a huge difference in swaying people over to the Genesis, because I remember playing a lot of Street Fighter 2 on the Genesis for some reason. I played a lot of Street Fighter 2, and I played a lot of Tournament Fighter, which we were talking about on Nintendo Power Block recently.
Yes.
Because by the time this comes out, I mean, Shredder's Revenge will be out, but we were talking a lot of Ninja Turtles on a recent episode of Power Block, and yeah, I mean, Tournament Fighter and Street Fighter 2, I didn't play a lot of Mortal Kombat, but probably because, I don't know, it was on the news and my parents were afraid of it. I don't know.
Well, I played Mortal Kombat. I rented Mortal Kombat mostly on Super Nintendo, and my mom bought it for me because I asked her. She knew that it was M-rated, but I was just like, that's only just for the end part of the game. Like, I can handle it and stuff. And I'm like, I'm mostly learning this game so I could play it at the arcade.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, but at that point, like, I mean, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat on consoles, like, I would argue, kind of started killing the arcade, right? I mean, that was like the beginning of the end. You would know more than I would, because I didn't really spend a lot of time in arcades because we didn't really have any around here. Like the closest arcade, like the closest real arcade was like 20 or 30 minutes away, and like we just didn't go because it costs money.
Well, I know for me, from where I was at, it was like a 10-minute drive to the arcade because it was a mall that was close to us.
Yeah.
So, and really, if I did any arcades, it was the mall or Six Flags. I may do if there was like I'm out of town and I do see a arcade. I used to ask my mom if I could go in and just take a look at it to see. And there was a mall in Kentucky that we stopped by to go check out, and that's where they had Street Fighter 1 for it. But I remember seeing Alter Beast in the arcade, and then when I seen it and found out that Alter Beast was the pack-in for the Sega Genesis, because yes, everybody at that time in the 16-bit era, Super Nintendo had Super Mario World, and the Sega Genesis had Alter Beast for its first edition.
I mean,
Sonic.
Well, so Sonic 1 came out. That was like the famous relaunch, but I had Sonic like I had the Sonic box and the Sonic like the plastic case that it came in that said not for resale. So like did they because there was 3 versions of the Genesis. But I remember like Sonic 1 being packaged with Gen 2. Did they release a version of Gen 1 with Sonic? They must have because I had it. I have it.
When Sonic 1 came out and it got popular, that's when they switched it.
Right. But I have the box that says not for resale, which is the one that came in with with the console. That was the pack-in.
Right. But in 1989 when the system first came out, Also Beast was the one.
Right. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just asking if they released a bundle with Sonic. They must have. I mean, they must have, unless my box is wrong. But
the system with the system with Sonic. I believe so. Yeah, that's what they said. Like they because at that time Also Beast was just old, so they took it out, and then that's when they replaced it with Sonic the Hedgehog. Right. I don't know if the Genesis was redesigned at that point, but like most of the Genesis that came out, they mostly had that headphone jack and the gray slider for the volume. I think when they got to like the 32X era, that's when they started redesigning the Sega Genesis.
Right, because the 2 was small, and then the 3rd generation Genesis was like tiny. It was so small. And I remember they plastered that big 3 on the front of the console, like Genesis 3. It was like, maybe probably could have done without that, but whatever, it's fine. But yeah, I definitely had the big beefy boy with the headphone jack in the front and the volume slider on top of it for some reason, and 16-bit across the top, right? And it looked like a little black and red spaceship. I appreciate the design of the Gen 1 more now because it kind of like, the Master System had that kind of red nasty sticker on the front of it, but like basically kind of was the design of the console, right? It was like the black and red console, and the Gen 1 Genesis just had a little teeny strip of red to give it a little bit of accent. And like now, like as I got older, I realized, oh well, that's kind of probably like a homage back to the Master System, even though Sega's logo is blue.
Yeah, it was something. I think with Sega, definitely with the Master System, it was that when you seen it come out, like that Sega symbol would slide and it'd be like, ooh, and then they play their theme song. When you started seeing different Sega games on the Genesis, sometimes you may have like character animations doing something with it, or it would just like pop up with Sega, and then the game music would come in. Like they mixed it up. They mixed up the Sega logo introduction to the system.
Yeah. I also I really like the design of the box. Sega was really good at having an aesthetic, right? Like the Master System had like the white and blue grid, right? That was the aesthetic, and all the boxes had the white and blue grid, and it had some kind of weird children's design on the cover of each one. But I really liked that. And then you get to the Genesis, and it had like the black and gray checkerboard style with and later on they had like the red strip down the side, right? Once like Sonic 2 was coming out, and the Disney games and whatever, and I remember the red strip, and I remember the black and gray checkerboard, and it was just like they were really good at having a look, and I think that's what really helped define the Genesis in a weird way. When you see the checkerboard, right, you think of Genesis. When you see the Sega font, right, like when you see the font, you think of the Genesis and Sonic running by, and then Sega, right? Like they just had a really good branding. They had really good branding and really good aesthetic that made them stand out, right? And Nintendo didn't really have that, to be fair, right? Like they had, like when the Super Nintendo came out, they just had the black boxes with Super Nintendo written in red, right? That was it. Like people remember like, oh, well, the console had purple on it. Well, yeah, but it wasn't cohesive with the boxes, or like the console box, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just really felt like Sega nailed it. And when they redesigned, like with the Genesis 2 and 3, like they had the black and gray that matched the checkerboarding of the boxes, and it just was great. It was great.
Yeah, because it's like you look at games like Golden Axe and
Who's looking at Golden
Sonic.
Axe?
I mean, but you know, you kind of, but you,
I know.
even,
I'm just kidding. I
know that.
I just wanted to be a jerk.
But even like the Mickey Mouse game, just like it just had a cohesive look.
Yeah.
Because of the console, and I think the thing with Super Nintendo was just like you were so into the game, you really didn't think about the box art.
Yeah.
You know, unless that box art was looking wacky, like Phalanx, where there's a spaceship and there's an old dude with a banjo that has nothing to do with what the game is. You know,
I mean, that was a lot of box art in the 80s and 90s, though.
Yeah, but I mentioned earlier when Sega was programming some other people like this game, they were, for people who don't know, there's a game called Forgotten Lands that Capcom did as an arcade, and Sega reprogrammed it to have it on the Genesis. They also reprogrammed Ghouls and Ghosts, or Ghosts and Goblins, for the Sega Genesis. So it was I was kind of amazed by that, because I always wondered, I'm like, how is this game on the Sega Genesis and Capcom's not signed to them? But then it was just like they even did Strider on the Sega Genesis. Now there's another company who called US Go who did the sequel. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, like Capcom and Konami were like literally late to the party. I think they were the last ones before the Sega Genesis.
Well, Konami had a lot. Konami did a lot of stuff for Genesis. I had a lot of Konami games. I feel like I had Rocket Knight, I had Turtles, I had. Oh, maybe that was it. But I remember the Konami logo like a lot for some reason. Maybe it's just because I played a lot of Hyperstone Heist.
They had their version of Zombie Ate My Neighbors on Sega Genesis.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
You mentioned, Hyperstone Heist, Tournament Fighters. They had Snatcher, which is the complete edition on the Sega CD. They had Castlevania Bloodlines, Contra Hard Corps on it. So Konami did put some games out on their platform. Rocket Knight Adventures. But
Rocket Knight Adventures was very good. Like, it was just this weird kind of character platformer with a little bit of action, and it was just fun.
Yes. Which is weird because at the time, I think people at Treasure left Konami, and you started seeing like some of Treasure's games on the McDonald's game, like Ronald McDonald's, the McDonald kids. That was done by Treasure, but that was on Sega Genesis. And you know, it was just entertaining to see some of their games on it. And the reason why I say they were kind of late, even with Capcom, because they had been making games for Super Nintendo when the system first came out and everything, and they just hopped on the Genesis train just a little bit late and everything. So that's why we have oh, sorry about that.
That's why we have different. Ed's sneezing.
That's why we have different versions of Aladdin between Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
You know, Capcom did the Super Nintendo version, but Virgin did that one for the Sega Genesis.
Yeah. Well, we all know which one was better.
The Super Nintendo one, of course.
No, the Genesis Disney games were better.
The
Way better.
Capcoms were.
No.
Have we come to an actual disagreement?
Like we've never come to a disagreement on all the 1,000 shows we've done.
Oh, yeah, but this one is just like there's no contest like disagreement. It's just like I think it's because I played the Super Nintendo the Capcom games, Disney licensed games, and the only one I really played on the Sega Genesis is the Mickey Mouse game.
Oh, Castle of Illusion,
Yeah,
which is the one game on Super Nintendo that's better. The Mickey's Magical Quest is way better than Castle of Illusion.
Yeah, and see, Sega programmed that one. Well, Sega created that one. It wasn't a Capcom game.
I know that, but I'm saying Mickey's Magical Quest was way better than Castle of Illusion.
Castle of Illusion was hard, and I don't know if you recognize this, Corey, but there were like level difficulties. Like the last time I seen it was Double Dragon 2 on NES, where if you picked a certain difficulty, you only went up a certain number of levels. So you had to play it like on this hardest difficulty to be able to experience the whole game. Because that happened with Castle of Illusion, and I was watching a game called Philios, which is a Greek shoot 'em up game by Namco. And I remember that game because I did beat it. Me and my brother, we were putting our money together, and we were able to buy a video game. And around that time, the Genesis, they had kind of budget titles, so you could get a Genesis game for $20. And we got
also another reason why I realized I probably had a Genesis instead of a Super Nintendo
because the games were cheap. We got Philios, and my brother didn't like it, and so I continued to play it. I continued to learn it, and I ended up beating it. But if you play it like on normal mode, you only get the first 4 chapters. You have to play it on expert mode to experience the whole game. But we also did that with Aeroflash. You know, he was, like I said, my brother literally was the sports game guy. Mm-hmm. You know, he had Pat Riley's basketball.
Oh my gosh, that game was...
You know what? It wasn't bad. I think it was the first basketball game I was able to beat.
It wasn't bad, but it wasn't real basketball.
Yeah, it was arcadey in a sense.
No, it was just no real players, no real anything, which I realize now, like back then, like you had to get like the NBA PA, like the players union in there, and to sign off on stuff, which now they make a ton of money just off the video games alone. But you know, I just, they didn't have real teams in there, right? Like when you played NBA Live, and it was like the Bulls and the Cavs and the Lakers and stuff. But when you go to Pat Riley's basketball, it's like the red team, the yellow team,
the Blue Sharks.
Yeah, I was like, You know, like the Thor meme. This is real basketball. Is it? No.
And I think it was at that time because Pat Riley's name was known.
Well, yeah, Pat Riley in the 80s and 90s was like the biggest thing in basketball until Phil Jackson came around, right? Like he was just he was everywhere.
Yes. So, yeah, like my brother, he had like Bulls versus Blazers, and he would always pick the Bulls because Jordan was like the best player in the game.
Yeah, but it wasn't Jordan though. It was shooting guard number 99, but everybody knew that was Michael Jordan, right? Like everybody knew that was Jordan. Because Jordan didn't want his likeness in video games, which was weird. Like that rarely happens now, but you see it in Madden with specific coaches and players and stuff. Like they don't, like, you know what I mean? Like they just don't want to be in it.
But then you got his video game that EA did.
What, Jordan versus Bird or whatever?
No, Jordan in the Windy City.
Oh.
It was like a platforming game where he hit enemies by throwing a basketball at them.
That sounds fake.
You can look it up.
No, I know it was real. It just sounds like one of those fake games that you see on TV. It's like, oh my gosh, who authorized this? You know,
Yeah.
who thought that was a good idea?
Man, who else had a? Let's see, Jordan and the Windy Cindy, Shaq Fu.
Yeah, dude, Shaq Fu at the time. By the way, two different games on Super Nintendo and Genesis. By the way,
Yeah.
oh, because I think the Super Nintendo was actually the beat 'em up, right?
No, it was a fighter. It was a fighting game.
Wait,
Genesis was a fighting game too.
one of them was a beat 'em up.
No, they both were fighting games.
Maybe I'm just thinking of the terrible Shaq Fu game that came out like
Oh
2 or 3 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah. That's
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I don't know. I remember like the boss. I thought only the boss battles in those games were the fighting parts. I swear one of them was a beat 'em up. I swear. I think you're making stuff up now, Ed.
nope. That you can go and check.
I'm gonna call up Shaquille O'Neal and see if he.
Well, and of course, the Genesis also got Neo Geo games on their platform too. Um, so I mean, yeah, the Sega Genesis had a lot of great games, and
Yeah, can we talk about some of the games on there? Because like,
yeah,
I mean, obviously, like you had Sonic, which I still, I still think Sonic 1 is the best Sonic game. I know I'm very in the minority of that, but I mean, Sonic 1 is just so. It was before like all the crazy, like obstacle courses and stuff of Sonic 2 and 3, which I know people like more, right? Like I think a lot of people think Sonic 3 is the best, and I don't care for Sonic 3 at all. But Sonic 1 and 2 are like just gems, right? I really like those games. And then obviously like the underrated Turtles game of the generation, right? In Hyperstone Heist, right? I absolutely love that game. Like that game was so cool, and like each level is split up into 3 sections, right? And then in the middle of the game, there's just this random boss rush mode in the middle, right, of the first 4 or 5 bosses, and it's just it's like, man, what are you doing? Why do I need to fight all these bosses again? But they incorporated some of the movie villains into that one, which was cool. Like Tatsu was in it, and Toka and Razor were in it, right? Which they weren't in Turtles in Time. So that was like a really cool thing.
Toka and Razor was in it.
In Turtles in Time?
Yeah.
Where?
They're the fourth. They were the fourth. So when you got to the Technodrome, they were the bosses that you fight before you got on the elevator.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You're right. You're right. Man, my brain is all over the place today.
Dude, we're gonna remember everything we played at Cowabunga Collection.
Oh my gosh, dude, that Cowabunga Collection, you're gonna lose me for about a week and a half. I gotta tell you. Especially because like there's games on that collection that I never played. Like I didn't know there were 3 Game Boy games.
Right, we talked about that.
Yeah,
I know I played 2, but the third one I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember the 3rd Game Boy game at all.
And yeah, Manhattan Project I didn't play. I did beat Tournament Fighters for the Super Nintendo. I did have Tournament Fighters for the Sega Genesis, but I never beat it, and I think it was because of the controller.
Mm-hmm.
I was having a hard time with the controls on that game.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I really think the Genesis has a lot of pretty great games. I mean, nothing that's I mean, for me they're fun games, right? But like nothing is as iconic as like the Super Nintendo games became, right? Like Super Mario World, obviously, and Super Metroid and Link to the Past, right? I mean, what are you gonna tell all your friends? Ever Oasis is one of the greatest games ever made? I don't think so.
Yeah, but I'm like, you gotta see like Streets of Rage 2. As much as I bring it up and we talk about it, everybody knows about the music and stuff. That's a game that is just playable in one sitting all the way. and there's just something about it that it's one of the games that I feel like something and no one at Nintendo would have been able to capture or do. And I'm not saying that they don't have Nintendo didn't have like iconic games or anything, but it really like Streets of Rage 2 felt like a game on its own that got people into want to hear house music and kind of see how house and video games mixed together, or dance music for some of you young folks mixed together, and then to realize that this sounds better on the Sega Genesis sound chip, and when someone remix it or they program it to sound like it was running through the Super Nintendo, it sounded terrible on the Super Nintendo. And I was just like, yeah, this is definitely was created for the Sega Genesis. Same with and same with Sonic 2 for me. That game soundtrack was programmed for it.
I mean, you can't not think of the opening, right, where like dun 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 dun, right, and then it goes right into the Green Hill Zone theme song, right, of Sonic 2. It's just I can't every time I think of Sega, those are the first sound, like it's the Sega and then the menu music and then the Green Hill Zone music. That's the order. That's every time somebody brings up Sega Genesis, that's what I think of. It's just that.
Yeah, I remember reading an EGM or a Game Pro on how to do the stage selection, and it was through the background music. Like you had to put in certain go to certain tracks, put them in, play them for a bit, and then it will unlock on how you get to the stages. But I played Sonic 2 and Sonic 1 all the way and got all the gems. I love Sonic 2 bonus stage better. Man, that Sonic 1 with just the way that it was kind of like a pinball game and it moved around to get to that gem, and you kind of had to bounce on the little peppermint balls and stuff to get through it. It was just like, I can't win.
Oh my gosh, dude, bouncing on those balls, and like they reintroduced that mechanic in Sonic Mania, and I was like, why would you do this to me, guys? Come on.
Right.
Why was this your choice? You picked violence today. Like
I didn't like Sonic Pinball.
Sonic Spinball? Oh my gosh, Sonic Spinball is awesome.
It did nothing for me.
How do you like Yoku's Island Express and not like Sonic Spinball?
Because
it's the same game.
But Yoko's Island, there's something about it, like I have more control over it, and I feel like I didn't have that control.
I mean,
for Sonic Spinball,
that's fair. But Sonic Spinball, man, I played a lot of Sonic Spinball. Like I remember the first time I actually beat the first level because that game was so hard, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. There's another level.
Right.
But it was cool. Like I thought the box art was super cool, and
yeah, the box art was cool.
I really liked Sonic's design in that game. Like it was kind of like a precursor almost to Sonic 3D Blast, the way he looked in Sonic 3D Blast, but it just had this kind of I don't know. I really liked it. I really liked Sonic Spinball for some reason, and I wasn't any good at it. So maybe that says something about the game. Maybe it wasn't really that good, and I just wasn't.
I did enjoy the Adventures of Batman and Robin on Sega Genesis.
See, I didn't play Batman and Robin on Sega Genesis because I wasn't a big Batman person. But the game I did play a lot was Jurassic Park. The Genesis so like my friend ended up one day rented the Super Nintendo version. I was like, oh yeah, I've played Jurassic Park. I have it for Genesis, and like this was before like I realized that there were two different versions of the same game, right? And so we get him like, he's like, all right, where do I go? And it's this weird like top down thing, and you're Grant, and you're just kind of walking through the park. I'm like, this is not the game that I play. I don't know what you're doing here, Dr. Grant. Because the Genesis one was like this 2D platformer.
Yeah.
And you could play as Grant or the Raptor. which was hilarious. Like you could play as a raptor in that game. It was cool, and it did the whole Donkey Kong Country thing before Donkey Kong did, right? They actually used kind of not real models, but you know what I mean? Like they digitized these models and made animations out of these models from the movies, and it was cool. Like that game looked really good.
Yes.
Also, Grant was also the way to go. The Raptor was so floaty and so just big and dumb, and couldn't get past the T-Rex because he would always eat you. It was just a bad time.
Yeah. I remember trying to play Tasmania
Oh
on the
yeah,
Sega Genesis.
Tasmania. That was a game too. Oof.
The third party platforms weren't all that well. But like to me, it was the system to play shoot 'em ups,
Yeah.
or shmups. So whether it's the space ones or kind of like the like Vector Man. Vector Man was a good one. Was a cool one. Um, but then you also had games, uh, like Comet Zone and Eternal Champions that Sega did. The X-Men game
Yeah,
that
the X-Men game I played, and I remember having such a hard time with it because you had to reset the console to keep going, which was like some Kojima craziness.
oh right.
And that was like a crazy thing at the time because a lot of people were complaining that they couldn't beat the game, and because people were renting it, but the instructions were in the instruction manual in the box that nobody had because all they did was rent it because they wanted to play X-Men because the X-Men were the biggest thing in the 90s, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, man, that game was crazy. That game was cool. I really enjoyed that game a lot.
Gambit was like the leading character that everybody wanted to play. I mean, I know people wanted to play Wolverine, but something about Gambit, I was just like, yeah,
Yeah,
he's the character to play.
yeah. I mean, a lot of people fell in love with Gambit in the 90s, which was about the time I was kind of over it. But I don't know. I don't really care for Gambit, but it was a fun game, and yeah, yeah. That X-Men game, crazy, crazy.
Yes. Uh, I do remember Sunset Riders also being on the Sega Genesis. I remember playing that. I owned it for Super Nintendo, played it there also. Um, but yeah, like a lot of Konami games were like $20. I remember games from like Revelations was also like $20 because like Arrow Flash, which is a great soundtrack, one of the best soundtracks for a shoot 'em up. When it comes to the planes, had vertical and horizontal levels. And like I say, it was my Sunday comfort game. Like after church, I will put hours into that game.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and like because I even got just the way that the game scrolled, like you would see in the back a ship floating down into the sea or into the sky, well into the sea, and then like the bottom of the sea part just to separates, and it was just a sight to behold. You're doing all of the shooting, but there's something in the background going on.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah. I didn't play a lot of shoot 'em ups back then. I was more of a brawler and more. I mean, I was still at that age where, like, I wanted to play the stuff that I was into, so I had to play all like the Power Ranger stuff and the Ninja Turtles stuff and
Yeah.
X-Men, and I mean, I was into Sonic and stuff too, obviously, right? Like it wasn't all licensed games, but I was still at that point where I was looking forward to playing Castle of Illusion or Aladdin or Lion King and that stupid uh uh can't wait to be king level. Oh my gosh, I hate that, where you're like jumping through like the giraffes and they're like throwing you and you have to like
Hmm.
go through the monkey throwing maze, and if you hit the wrong monkey he'll throw you down into the pit and you die. Like it was oh, that game was brutal. And the Jungle Book, and all the Disney afternoon games that ended up coming out. Like I was still playing all those games, and those games were fun to me. Those are my Genesis memories, and
Mm-hmm.
we were talking on the Super Nintendo episode a couple weeks ago at this point, I think, and I'm not sure when they come out, maybe whenever, but like I miss so much, and I feel like on Genesis I miss so much because I didn't know any better, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously I played a lot on the Genesis. I think I had like 20 or 30 games for Genesis. I had a lot of Genesis games, and but like I never played Ever Oasis. I never played Phantasy Star, which is supposedly incredible. I never played Alter Beast. I never played Golden Axe or Alex Kidd. Like I never played any of like the Sega games. And so like I buy the Genesis collection and then I go through and I'm like, I should probably play some of these games someday. And I know that Block did that huge like Phantasy Star review. I think he did the first 2 games at least so far. And they were like, they look fun. They look great. Block's Games reviews. You should check him out. On his reviews are great, and yeah, I still want to play those games, and I still, there's so many games that I want to play. It's just like I never have time, like just don't have time.
Yeah, Echo the Dolphin was one.
Oh gosh, Echo the Dolphin. I never understood that game. Like I would like swim under rocks and I would jump over these rocks and I'm like, where do I go? Is this like now thinking back to it, I think that was probably their attempt at a Metroid game, right?
Yes.
Like it's just this giant maze that you're swimming through, but yeah.
I think Shinobi 3 or Shinobi 2 had Spider-Man in it.
Oh yeah, wasn't that the game where you like fought Spider-Man and Batman or something?
Yeah. Toe Jammer Earl was another one. I remember they marketed that game hard because of the hip hop, uh, um, kind of feel to it. The Shining Force series, Phantasy Star 2 was big on the Sega Genesis because it's the way that the game ends and the people who die in it. Like Phantasy Star 2. I never played Phantasy Star on the Master System, which I heard that people had to literally call the helpline to figure out how to play that game and get through it, and they just ended up sending them maps and stuff. But like Phantasy Star 2, I think they ended up fixing all of that, and I need to sit down and play it. That Phantasy Star 3 and Phantasy Star 4. I really need to go through the Phantasy Star series. I know of them, but I've just never played them or anything. And I kind of just realized that, man, out of all, so Nintendo, Sega, Microsoft, and Sony kind of got their own fighting game in a sense. Nintendo got Smash. Sega had Eternal Champions for the Sega Genesis and Sega CD.
They also had Sonic the Fighters.
Oh, Sonic Fighters, that is right. Oh, and Retro Fighter, they have. Microsoft had a game that it was some game that they had to recall because it had Muslim chanting in it. And it was some religious chanting that they had to take out and fix. And then PlayStation had PlayStation All-Stars. But Sega is pretty much the leading when it comes to fighting games. Sega's probably the leading one because of Retro Fighter. Even though Smash is well known and everything. I'm surprised that each of those consoles got their own fighting game.
Yeah.
Well, and Killer Instinct, but
yeah.
now Killer Instinct belongs to Microsoft.
Yeah. Sorry, my son is crying in the background.
Yeah. Gunstar Heroes is the other game. So Corey, I want to ask you: were there any games that you know or played that kind of didn't get the recognition, or maybe it's maybe games that I even missed?
I mean, honestly, I doubt it. You know, like I played games that people knew about, right? Like it was always the Disney games. It was always Sonic. It was always, I mean, like I think Rocket Knight Adventure was probably the weirdest game I played, or Arrow the
Hmm.
Acrobat. But those aren't like, I mean, they're not. I bet if you went up to random people today, they wouldn't know what they were, but they weren't like unknowns back then, right? It was just,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, those are kind of the only two. It was a lot of sports. It was a lot of Disney. It was a lot of Sonic, and I mean, that's what it was. I think the weird stuff started coming when we got to the 32X and the Sega CD, right? I mean,
Right.
everybody knows what Earthworm Jim is. Everybody knows, Booger Man and the raisin, like the
The
California raisins, and the everybody
Play
had a game.
Fighter.
Yeah, everybody had a game, right? Every company had a game. And so I'm gonna try to look some up real quick, but I don't think there's anything weird, you know?
Well, I remember Splatterhouse 2 being on the Sega Genesis. Like, and that was a game that, because Splatterhouse came out on TurboGrafx, and it was an arcade game. I didn't know it was an arcade game, but I remember the first one coming out on TurboGrafx because they like literally showed it on TV. And then Splatterhouse 2 showed up. I'm like, oh, this game got a sequel? Wait, what?
Hmm.
Like, I played a little bit of it, but I was like confused for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, plus like, you had like Maximum Carnage, which was the weird Spider-Man game, right? And
Yeah.
which was not very good. I'm just trying to think of all like the weird things, I and as we as we talk about this, like the Genesis was fun and everything, but like it just none of the games had the lasting impression that Nintendo has had, and I love Sega. I will always support Sega, and I always think like the Saturn and the Dreamcast, especially the Dreamcast, are where a lot of people's like lasting legacy comes from, right? I mean, yeah, okay,
Yes.
Phantasy Star and Sonic are still going, right? But I mean, when people think of Sega now, they think of Shenmue, they think of Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio and Sega GT and Virtual Fighter, Virtual Cop, and Daytona USA. Like and those all and Panzer Dragoon to an extent, right? Like those all spawned off the Saturn and the Dreamcast. Nobody cares about Gunstar Heroes. Nobody cares about Strider. You know,
I care about Gunstar
no,
Heroes.
you don't. Don't lie.
Yes, I do. As dude, I brought it on my Wii because I never got to play it when the Retro Console came on, the Wii Shop. And so I was just like, yeah, let me get this game. And now it's on Switch. I'm just like, oh, so it's pure goodness. It's hard as ever, but it's pure goodness. Um, for me, there was I think Virtual Racing was on Genesis. Uh, there was some kind of like not it literally ran at like about 15 frames per second. Like it was a mess, but it was the first game that you could drive a car upside down if you had enough speed. But it was like it was trying to be in 3D, and it was just so slow, and I'm just like, wow, and stuff like that. Um, yeah, but that's pretty much. I think Arch Rivals was on Sega Genesis. Uh, for a time being, like there were some arcade ports that was on it. Columns was a new kind of game to me because
Columns was like, hey, Nintendo was successful with Tetris. We need a cool puzzle game that will, get the kids to play Genesis. And guess what? Sorry, Columns, not it, not it. Although Sega does have a hit with Puyo Puyo, right? I mean, like Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine was like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people really love that game, and I still have no idea how to play it. Like, I look at Puyo Puyo, like, we joke about Puyo Puyo Tetris all the time, and I'm like looking at there, I'm like, what is Puyo Puyo? What is this garbage game that they package with my Tetris? What is it? Get it out of here. I don't want it. I don't want these little like gooey blobs that like send bricks over to people. I don't need it. It's like it's like Dr. Mario. No, you tried.
Oh,
You
I
tried.
could not get into Dr. Mario. Could not understand that gameplay.
I'm like, you tried, and you know you get it's a valiant effort, but nobody likes you. Please go away.
Yes.
So man, gosh, dude, Dr. Mario and all this stuff is just so. It's just weird, man. Like I have to say though, like looking back on the Genesis and like building the Voltron machine of like the Sega CD with the 32X or like Sonic and Knuckles, right? We didn't even talk about
Yeah.
Sonic and Knuckles yet. How like crazy revolutionary that was, or like begging my parents to get Sega Channel, right, which was the Game Pass before Game Pass, right? Like,
Yes.
and they wouldn't get it because I mean it's a subscription, whatever, and like I mean it was just there was no way I was getting Sega Channel, but it was like it was literally Game Pass before Game Pass, you know, it was a really cool concept, and the game they like tried to sell it with was Earthworm Jim, and I'm like, I don't know about that, but
I remember Mega Man the Witty Wars because I think they remade Mega Man 1 and like that new kind of graphic style.
is that what that was?
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. No, I knew they made a Mega Man, and then they try to do Castlevania on Genesis also, right? Like what was the Castlevania Genesis game?
Bloodlines. Castlevania
Bloodlines,
Bloodlines. Yeah.
which falls in what timeline?
Ooh. Well, because they had two different protagonists. Because one of them had a whip, and the other one had like a harp, like kind of harp thing,
Yeah.
for it. And
I'm gonna play Castlevania at some point. I think I
I
need
mean,
to.
yeah,
That's like one of the that and Mega Man are like the biggest holes in my gaming. Whatever.
I mean, I'm down for it.
I didn't ask you to play it for me, Ed. I said I'm gonna play it.
No, I'm talking about while you playing it. I'm talking to you.
I know. I'm just kidding. I just messing with you. It's so fun to mess with you. It's so easy.
Because I don't think
Pew
it as a
pew.
joke,
I know. You should though.
but I can't.
I know. But you should.
Uh,
Um. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff on Genesis. Genesis was just a weird console in general, but I mean, I think for the most part, Genesis was this kind of, and Nintendo was scared of them, and you know, I mean, they didn't have the best games, but they had a lot of games that Nintendo didn't. Right?
mm,
They had the sports games. They had Mortal Kombat with blood. They had the 6-button pad. They did all these weird things with the Sega CD, which I'm sure wasn't cheap. Sewer Shark, dude.
oh, good, that gang.
I only had like 2 or 3 Sega CD games. One was Hook, one was Sewer Shark, and one was there was a Mickey game that was on there as well.
Hmm.
And man, it was just whew, man, what an interesting console, you know.
And I think it's probably one of the maybe the biggest. I mean, we all know about the console war, so that's nothing new. But I think it was the first time where government and politics got involved because of Night Trap, and you know how
Yes, Night
Ron.
Trap.
I think Ron Howard or Howard something from Nintendo was just like,
Ron Howard is a
uh,
director of movies, Ed.
I know. uh, um, the guy
Ron
from
Howard.
Nintendo, Ron Howard. I don't know why
Oh
they
my
came to
god.
my mind. Uh, he said that Night Trap wouldn't be on the game, and it was such a big issue that it helped create the ESRB, even though Sega did have their own rating systems. And if you look at uh some of the old box stuff that had, like, if you look at Mortal Kombat, they had like MA-17 or MA-13, which
Hmm.
was like teen, and G for general and stuff. But then when they redid everything, that's when Nintendo started allowing blood
Right.
and all of that going
Gosh,
on.
I totally forgot that Sega had their own rating system before anybody. Like God, dude, Sega was so ahead of their time in so many different things, right?
Hmm.
I mean, even past the Genesis, right? But like with Genesis, they had Sega TV, right, which was the subscription service. They had, the rating system. You move on to like the Saturn, and they had full motion video and
Yeah.
audio, and then you move on to the Dreamcast with online and usernames and subscriptions, and like they were so ahead of their time. And if they would have just like waited and were smarter financially, right? Like if they wouldn't have done the whole Saturn surprise debacle, which today would have been like an amazing thing, but back in the 90s was like a terrible idea, because E3 was literally the trade show where you went to Toys R Us and Walmart would show up, and you would have to like convince them to sell your box in their store, right? Like
Right.
that was the thing. And like that totally messed them up. And then obviously the Dreamcast was uh they were trying to recover financially, and everybody was waiting for the behemoth that was PlayStation 2. Like if they would have just waited and they didn't mess up financially, like I wonder if Sega would still be around in terms of like a console. Like, maybe it wouldn't be a juggernaut like Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo are still, but like I wonder if there's room for that a fourth box,
I, I,
because
I,
especially now, because they have enough to warrant a first party box, right? Like Sonic,
yeah.
they have Atlas, they have all those great RPGs, Yakuza, Judgment, the reboots of Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio are coming. They just had that weird remake of Panzer Dragoon. Phantasy
Hmm.
Star Online is huge, right?
Huge. Definitely
Uh,
on Xbox is big.
yeah. What was the other one I was going to say? Oh, they have their own. They could have had their own Forza or Gran Turismo with Sega GT, right? They could have totally done
Yeah.
something like that. Like you look at all the things I just listed, and that's not even close to what Sega has in their arsenal to pull out, right? Like they have
Right.
so much. Like Team Sonic Racing, they have their Mario Kart competitor. Uh, they could bring back Ever Oasis in a big way in terms of like a Zelda style game.
Hmm.
Shinobi could be like their Dark Souls at this point, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
I man,
I mean,
this this
Sega
this
published
hold
games
on.
from Platinum. Oh, go
Let
ahead.
this should be the discussion for expansion pass. What if Sega made a console today? What would their first party lineup look like?
It's Thursday. That's
Thursday.
that's a Yeah, that's the type of Thursday.
Okay. Okay.
Because I literally would need time to think, because we haven't even talked about the games that's only in Japan for Sega that could literally come out. You just mentioned Shinobi, and I'm like, okay, Sega, you publish Platinum games, you know what they're good at.
That's
That's
another
that's
thing. Bayonetta.
right,
Bayonetta would be theirs, right? Technically.
right. Vanquish, uh, Vanquish 2 alone could be a leading game for the next Sega console. Saving it for Thursday.
Gunstar Heroes could be like a crazy. Yeah, we'll save it. But that's
Yeah.
oh man, great topic. Great topic. Now I'm excited. Which that
Uh,
which that episode of Expansion Pass will come out before this episode of Standard Def, but I don't care. I'm really excited for it now.
yes. Yeah,
Um,
because that, like you mentioned, Corey, that's a lot of IPs that Sega holds and strong titles. We have strong developers who could like literally bring out games. That Emu, like alone, could almost do half of their old 8-bit and 16-bit stuff. But like during the Dreamcast era and everything, oh heck, dude, to see a new Jet Set Radio.
hmm Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Like they have so much that they could do to just even now, like to bring back, like not even talking about like bringing back a console or whatever, but they can
Hmm.
totally do so many things today. And I know Yakuza is huge for them. Like Yakuza is huge for them. Yakuza
Huge,
7
yeah.
is humongous for them. I'm looking up Sega IP right now.
Because everybody wants a Fantasy Star 5. They love the online, but a Fantasy Star
I mean,
5?
you could think of like Golden Axe as almost like a Monster Hunter style game at this point,
Mm-hmm.
or uh, Altered Beast could be something weird. Alex Kidd could just be another like like out their Mario. Like I mean, I know Sonic is technically their Mario, but like if you want a proper Mario game, you could totally turn Alex Kidd into a Mario
Shoot.
game.
Wonder Boy is kind of like their Metroid game in a
Yeah.
sense.
Uh, Crazy Taxi. I mean, that just sells itself. I think. I don't know. I think they could.
Space Harrier alone is their Star Fox. Just make the
Yeah.
game shorter.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of going through here at this point, but yeah, man. I mean, they have a lot that they could totally just do something with a Togi, right? Like they own a Togi technically.
Ooh, yes.
Uh, I mean, obviously Persona and Shin Megami Tensei they own, which is would be. I mean, they would almost own the JRPG space at that point. Them and Square would be battling it out at this point.
Pretty much. And Sammy, I believe they also have games. Uh,
Yeah,
Sammy Court.
yeah. I mean, Shenmue they own, right? That would be and weird to bring back, I guess. But Space Channel 5, I know people like that. Super Monkey
Yes.
Ball is theirs. I always forget that exists, but that's super popular.
I think about the Shenmue
Oh,
thing.
Valkyria Chronicles is theirs.
Oh yes.
Oh, man, what that game is? Those games are great. I played 1 and 4 on the Switch, and those games are fun. Virtual Fighter
Valkyrie.
could totally be there.
Oh
Tekken or
yeah.
Street Fighter or whatever. Which I mean, we kind of touched on that earlier, but man,
But for on a new console as like next gen, like
hmm
I think yeah, expansion pass
yeah.
because that
We got to stop because no, we got to stop because we're gonna
this is
keep going and we're gonna turn this into that conversation. We got to stop.
yeah, this is that Metroid
Yeah.
Helldivers situation. Uh, well, we're gonna get to the final piece then of the Sega Genesis. Um, I will say that it did bring a lot of memories to me. It did help my gaming skill. I enjoyed the games that they did offer. Uh, and I guess because I had the best of both worlds, I've never was a console uh part of the console wars. You know, whatever I got for Super Nintendo, I enjoy. Whatever I got to play on Sega Genesis or even rent and buy, I enjoy. Now there are some games that were questionable content, but I I I gotta give it up to Sega for the Sega Genesis. It really did play a big part in the 16-bit era.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they were the ones that challenged Nintendo and you know for real they challenged Nintendo. Obviously, like Nintendo Super Nintendo outsold them, but they took a chunk out of Super Nintendo that maybe wouldn't have been there if they didn't have a challenger, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean the Genesis was a great machine. I still have mine. It's downstairs. You know, I have the mini console. I have the dumb Sonic Mania statue where he's standing on the Genesis, which I want to display at some point. Whenever we move and get a house and I can have a real studio where we can do this for real. yeah, I don't know. I like the Genesis. I know we didn't really deep dive into a lot, but we kind of brushed over a ton of stuff that, I still, every time I think of Sonic, and I think of Sonic 2, and I think of Ninja Turtles, and the weird Power Rangers, not like the weird Power Rangers game for Genesis, which wasn't very good. Rocket Knight Adventures, I think, is still like one of my favorite games that nobody ever talks about. Like, there's just a lot to love about the Genesis. It was a cool console. It kind of reminds me of the original Xbox in a way, like how people remember the original Xbox, where like it had that one game that everybody remembers, right? Sonic, the way that everybody remembers Halo, but then they had like a bunch of little games that like nobody really talks about. It had like one or two gems, right, that still live on, but like, yeah, Genesis was cool.
Yeah.
Sega.
Really that man. Yeah. That little part. I think it's literally up there, kind of like with the GameCube logo intro. In a sense.
I mean,
on how
the Genesis one is better. I don't know how you could not think it's better. Also, but also it was per game, so I mean, you had the sports games, right? They were like Sega.
Yes.
And then you had the fighting games, which were like a variant of the sports ones. They were like they were very like a Japanese person, or like probably a white person doing a really racist impression of a Japanese person, like Sega. Like it was. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Sonic Sega thing was just that's what Sega will always be to me, I think.
Yes. Well, with that, everybody, we're going to wrap this standard definition episode. We want to know what you guys think about the Sega Genesis. I would love to hear. You guys could join us on our Discord, where we talk all things games, food, movies, entertainment, and more. I would love to hear your thoughts about the Sega Genesis. If you got a chance to play it, did you experience it during the Wii era because you never got one as a kid, or did you buy one of the mini systems that came out? Are you playing any of the games on Switch or anything? And maybe are you playing it in other forms?
Are you playing the Sonic Origins collection comes out? It'll be out by the time this episode goes up, I think.
Yes. So
that's something too. We never talked about Sonic CD either, which is widely regarded as the best Sonic game that nobody talks about because nobody has Sega CD.
That's Sega.
To be fair, I didn't really care for Sonic CD. I liked it because it felt more like Sonic 1, but the level design was not great. Like, the music was cool, but not iconic enough for me, at least, to replace
I can understand.
one or two.
I can understand the mechanics because I'm just like, what am I supposed to do to get through? This is a time space game. I don't know.
Yeah, it was weird. I didn't play very much of it. I mean, I played it because I had it, right? But I just, it's a forgettable Sonic game to me, personally, and I just, yeah.
Well, Corey, where can we find you?
Hopefully in bed soon. I'm just tired. That was not meant to be a sexual joke. That was meant to be a I'm tired, don't bother me joke. You can find me at I am Corey HD on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find me on Nintendo Power Block, Expansion Pass, Standard Definition, Boss Rush Podcast. Wow, almost forgot that show. Our flagship show. Almost forgot that I host it. I'm around. Just check out all the Boss Rush stuff. Hope everybody, by the time you see this, check out the YouTube channel because all of our shows are getting overhauls within the next few weeks. So you'll probably start seeing them trickle out. This is probably the last time you're going to see Standard Def like this, in a way. So, yeah. Yes. I'm glad we did a Sega episode, Ed. I know we've been talking about Genesis and Dreamcast for a while, and, I'm not as versed in a lot of Sega, but I am really into Genesis and Dreamcast, so I'm glad we decided to do this.
Yeah, like I said, Sega has a big history that it just doesn't get mentioned. Like they play a part in this gaming industry like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you guys can find me on Twitter at ThatBretcherCode and on Instagram at ThatBretcherCode. I know I need to post more pictures up there. You can find me hosting it to the Pod Block and Expansion Pass and other podcasts that I am able to join and be on and co-host and anything like that. But everybody, that's going to be it for Standard Definition about the Sega Genesis. Go out there and experience it for yourself. Get some time with some of their games, and hopefully you enjoy what they have to offer. But then, everybody, we will see you next time on Standard Definition. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.